Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. I'm getting ready to head over to Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, and I made a point after that disastrous showing down in Florida to say that I'm just making a commitment to myself. I'm rigging my rods, but I'm making a commitment that I am not going to be sticking fish in practice. I'm just, that's all I keep talking about for the last couple of weeks since getting back from Florida is how I really damaged my opportunities by sticking fish during practice. So today we're going to show you how I prepared my rods so that I'm ready to practice and ready to throw a variety of different baits on Hartwell, but none of them, they're either going to not have hooks or those hooks are going to be covered or bent in. We're going to talk about how I did all of that in today's episode. Stick around, guys. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Mark Fisher, and like I said, I'm going to give you kind of a first-hand look at the rods and the techniques that I'm going to be practicing using, but what I've done to prevent sticking fish during practice. Now, some of these are pretty basic. Some, might be things that you haven't heard of. And I've got some other ideas here that I'm choosing to stay away from, but I'd like to get your opinion on them. So let's look first at just a Wacky rig Cinco. Again, I think some of these are pretty basic, but with this Wacky rig Cinco, all I've done is I'm got an O-ring over the Cinco that's tied directly to my line. There's no hook on this at all. If I'm throwing a Wacky rig Cinco like this, unweighted, this gives me the exact same look that it's going to have if I've got a little, number 2 hook on it or a 2-aught hook on it. And I can throw this, fish bites it, I'm going to be able to, I can track them, but I'm not going to set the hook on it. So a Wacky rig Cinco, just use an O-ring, tie it directly to your line, and I'm fishing without a hook. Now, if I take that same type of bait, but for example, I'm going to fish it Texas rigged, this is the way this bait would look if I had a hook Texas rigged. And now all I've done is I've got the same type of bait with a little slip sinker, but I've attached that to a hitchhiker. And so I'm just going to kind of screw that in. And then slip my weight down. And it's the same type of deal at this point. I'll feel the bite, but there's no hook at all. And I can fish this bait without any kind of a hook and just track the number of bites I'm getting without sticking fish. Another bait that I'm going to be throwing in Hartwell quite a bit is a jerk bait. In this situation, with a jerk bait or a crankbait, I'm going to have to keep the hooks on. You're going to disturb the weight and the balance of the bait itself if you just remove the hooks. So I need to keep the hooks on, but what I'm going to do is roll those hooks over. Can you see that? There you go. You see how I've got the hooks rolled over, and on this one I left one out. So one of the things to pay attention to when you're rolling these hooks over is just with your needle nose pliers, just go at them and just kind of gently apply pressure. And you get that rolled over. You can see that right there. All 3 of those are rolled over. And that's what I'm going to do with a jerkbait. Now, granted, I want to obviously, if this jerkbait ends up being the bait that I'm going to throw, I'm either going to need to throw one that has the hooks exposed, or I'm going to need to trade out the 3 sets of hooks when it comes time for tournament time to get back to a place where I've got those. I'm not going to bend these back out. These hooks are weakened at this point, to the point where I'm not going to use them for anything other than practice anymore. Now, another type of bait that I'm going to be throwing on Hartwell and that I don't want to stick fish with would be either a chatterbait or a swim jig. And so what I've done with all of these types of baits, I don't want to just cut the hook, because when I'm cutting the hook, now that bait is trashed. It's only a practice bait. So what I've done here is I have just taken a piece of shrink tubing that I bought at a local hardware store. Just some shrink tubing, comes in a package like this. It comes in different sizes. You want to try and buy, in my opinion, the thinnest shrink tubing you can. You just cut a little piece off of the, to match the size you need, put it on, and then with a lighter, you just heat that part of the shrink tubing until it shrinks down tight against that hook, and it's on there. It doesn't come off, but the point of the hook is completely covered up. And so I'm now in a situation where, yes, fish grabs it, they're going to grab it, and I'm going to feel that, but I'm not going to be able to penetrate the fish's mouth with that hook. And when practice is over, I can take a scissors and cut that shrink tubing off, and I can go back to, I could literally fish the same bait if I want. Now, interestingly enough, when it comes to chatterbaits, a brand new chatterbait in the box or in the package literally comes, you see that little red shrink tubing right there. So if I've got a chatterbait tied on, I can literally just leave the shrink tubing that the brand new chatterbait comes with, and that'll be perfect for practice. And then when it's time to get to the tournament, cut that shrink tubing off, and you're right back in business. I've done the same thing with my swim bait. I'm using a tush rig here. I don't want to ruin a perfectly good tush rig, so I've just taken a little piece of shrink tubing, put it over there. Again, it's 100% not going to penetrate the fish's mouth. It's not going to change the action on the bait. And when I'm done, I can cut that. Yes, if I wanted to in this situation, if I'm looking at it and going, hey, I got 1,000 tush rigs. Do I want to take one tush rig and just cut it right here so that the point of the hook is out? But I don't want to change the tush too much to where it doesn't give the same action. So I would just trim it just in front of the barb or behind the barb so that I still had most of the hook on it, most of the hook weight and all of that. I could do that. But in this case, I don't want to lose any tush rig I have. So I'm going to hang on to this way. Now, as I said, there's some other ideas that guys have come up with to cover the points of the hooks. One of the ideas that I've known about for a while is to take these Carolina keepers. They're just, it's a package of these, and they end up looking, they're just little tabs, little rubber tabs. And you can take the point of a hook and literally just cover the point of a hook. I have to be honest, this is a little bulky to me, and I feel anytime I get bulky, in the past I've used things like surgical tubing, and to me that is just too bulky. It's going to change the way the bait moves. And the last thing I want is to be in practice trying to figure out how to generate strikes and not get strikes and have it be because of the fact that I covered up a hook and I'm not getting strikes that way, as opposed to having the bait run as natural as possible. So that's an idea. One that I like better is to actually take rubber bobber stops and just put the bobber stop over the point. The bobber stop is much smaller. And a key to that would be take that lighter that I showed you with the shrink tubing, heat the point of the hook up, and then push the bobber stop in. And that rubber on the heat of on the point of the hook, when you push that bobber stop in, it'll almost kind of melt that bobber stop over the hook. But then when you pull it out, you're going to be fine. So a bobber stop, I would like that concept, but use just a little bobber stop. I think it does a lot better in terms of covering up the point of the hook, but not changing the way your bait actually works. Now, one of the baits that I'm not throwing at Hartwell, that I don't plan on throwing, is a frog. But if I were, I've got frogs that I literally have gone and cut the hooks off of. All you need is one frog that you're going to say, hey, this one's going to be my practice frog. I'm cutting the hooks off of it. And boom, that's your frog that you're going to use in practice. And, you know, when you get a bite, a blow up on a topwater frog that's got no hooks, you're seeing the size of the fish, you're fine with it. Then you just go and change to your tournament ready frog in that case. Again, I don't anticipate that Hartwell's going to be a place where I'm going to be throwing frogs, but that's what I would be doing in this situation if I were going to be throwing frogs. Guys, I hope this information helps. Like I said, I'm just committed to the fact that I cannot stick fish during practice. I certainly hope that it shows in my results, and we're getting ready to leave. And so as these episodes come out, we'll kind of keep you informed on how practice is going and how the tournament ended up going. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we will see you again tomorrow on another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.